After a result like that, Barcelona has to be asking serious questions about every single person at the club, the players, the coaches, the board, and there's been a lot of harsh statements, and deservedly so, from Barcelona fans, so I just wanted to talk about all the statements that we've heard after Barcelona's loss to Real Madrid. And the first, of course, is Xavi out, and when you play that poorly and you set up the game that bad, of course, a lot of the blame has to go on the coach. If it was just this game, no big deal, but Barcelona have consistently underperformed, and almost every single player at Barcelona is underperforming given the level that they should be at. And so when every single player on the team doesn't look good, you've got to be asking questions about the system that they're playing in. For me, there is zero chance that Xavi gets fired right now. I just don't feel like sacking him mid-season is going to be something that Laporta does, but I feel like if at the end of the season Barcelona haven't impressed a lot and improved greatly from where they are at right now, then Xavi might be fired. And you can have a rough patch of games, but where is the club going when their squad has been better than the first year and a half that Xavi was appointed, yet they're playing a lot worse? And on paper, I think Barcelona has a top 5 squad in the world, yet they are playing nowhere near it. There are so many clubs around the world that are playing much better than Barcelona with a considerably less talented squad. So I definitely understand people wanting a different coach at Barcelona because I think the way that Barcelona is playing right now, it's just unacceptable for the team that they have. And another take that we've heard a decent amount is that Barcelona fans want Frenkie de Jong sold in the summer. And I'll continue to say that Frenkie de Jong is one of the best players on Barcelona, and of course his transfer value is one of the highest in the squad, so if Barcelona does need a big sale in the summer, his name would of course come up. And that loss yesterday was definitely not Frenkie de Jong's fault. Mostly it was Xavi's fault, but it was also every single player on Barcelona. There wasn't one player that isn't deserving of some blame. Of course, another issue is his wages. He's getting paid $37 million a year right now. I think a lot of that is just deferred payment from the Bartomeu era, and he's one of the only players that has that lasting contract that Bartomeu made, where it was obviously terrible financial decisions. And I don't know exactly if those are delayed payments. I don't know how much he's getting paid per year, but he is the highest earner on Barcelona by a large margin right now. And I feel like he catches a lot of blame after these big losses from Barcelona, and I think a lot of it is just because he doesn't show that much in these games. It doesn't seem like he's super affected by losing, which people show themselves in different lights. There's a lot of people that are mad after a loss, and that's rightfully so. I think every single player on Barcelona should be furious with that loss because it was actually so embarrassing. Of course, no player in the squad can be compared to Gavi, but I think that's why Gavi was such an important profile, was because he was giving everything on the field all the time. And it's not just Frenkie de Jong. I just think there are too many players on Barcelona that just are okay with losing. Like Gundogan said after the Clasico loss in the beginning of the game, players should be more mad in the locker room after that game. And I thought that Xavi had finally gotten the best out of Frenkie de Jong, but I just feel like without a defensive midfielder, without Busquets, he just doesn't have as free of a role, and he's just not as effective for Barcelona. But of course, in most league games, he is one of Barcelona's best players on the field every single time that he comes out, and so it's really hard to slander him at every loss. And I really like Frenkie de Jong. He's one of my favorite players to watch at Barcelona, and I think he is one of the best players on the team, but of course, someone earning $37 million a year, you just want a little bit more in these type of games. And then another harsh but basically deserved statement from Barcelona fans is that Barcelona should basically sell their entire attack. And of course, in a game like this, against one of the best attacks in the world, you're going to see a huge gap in quality. And I've been saying this for a long time, Barcelona's attackers are just not good enough to make the difference for Barcelona. And for me, the only two Barcelona attackers that have a guaranteed spot in the team next year should be Lamine Yamal and Vitor Roque. And for me, Rafinha is the difficult one because he is one of Barcelona's most decisive players, but for the price tag that Barcelona bought him at, I just feel like we would be asking for a little bit more. But he is a player that I wouldn't mind Barcelona keeping, but I just feel like Barcelona should be open to options for basically every attacker other than Lamine Yamal and Vitor Roque. I feel like Ferran Torres can be a decent squad player for Barcelona, but can he start for Barcelona? I don't know. For João Felix, I don't think he's done enough and been consistent enough to warrant a 30 to 40 million price tag that Barcelona would have to spend on him, and who knows, it might be even more than that in the summer. We'll see how the rest of the season goes. Maybe Barcelona can get him on loan again, but I just don't know if he's really worth it for Barcelona. And for Lewandowski, I think Barcelona have to look to move on, or at least lower his salary, because 20 million a year for a guy that should not be starting in Barcelona, it's just not worth it. I think he actually performed pretty well against Real Madrid, and that goal that he scored was incredible, but again, it's just not good enough this season. He's been really poor, and we can't overlook that. For a club like Barcelona, I just don't think the attack is anywhere near good enough. But again, Rafinha, I wouldn't mind staying, but Vitor Roque and Lamine Yamal should be the only two guarantees to continue to play at Barcelona next season. And then a lot of other harsh opinions about Barcelona are about their defense, but I really feel like Xavi completely left them out to dry. I don't feel like it was their fault, even though individually they were all poor. For me, I just don't understand how they could fall off this bad, because this is one of the best defenses in Europe last season, but this year it's been anything but. Not only that, in terms of quality, you added João Cancelo and Inigo Martinez into the back line. That should only help it. I think João Cancelo has been doing good for Barcelona, and I hope that Barcelona can afford to buy him in the summer because I feel like he would be a great permanent addition. But there's no way around it. Balde has not been as good as he was last season. I don't know really what happened with him, but he's just not been the same player. And for Christensen and Koundé, I feel like they were both very reliable defenders for Barcelona, but I feel like there have been multiple times where they've messed up, where they've made individual mistakes that have cost Barcelona goals. For Koundé, he's been great at right back. I know he doesn't want to play there, but I think that might be his best position for Barcelona. I think Barcelona's defense has just been all over the place this season. I think most of the blame would go on Xavi for that case, because I think individually you take all of these players out at Barcelona and put them on a top team like City, Bayern, I think they would do so well. And of course, last season when Barcelona was a much more organized team, they were all great for Barcelona. But of course, there have been talks about Ronald Araujo. I don't want him to leave Barcelona at all, but Christensen and Koundé, there have been talks about Barcelona listing them up in the summer and seeing if anyone wants to put a bid on them. But the thing is, on paper, I really think Barcelona does have one of the best defenses in the world, and they proved that last season. I just don't know what's happened this year. The way that Barcelona have been playing, it's just so easy to score on Barcelona. The team just looks so exposed at all times, and I just feel like, again, that has to be on Xavi. But of course, at the same time, these players are also not playing that well. But yeah, there have been a lot of talks about Barcelona's situation right now, and rightfully so, because that performance was so embarrassing and honestly so sad to watch. And as great as the squad is for Barcelona, I just think they have a long way to go to be back to one of the best teams in the world, where other teams are actually worried about playing them. I hope Barcelona can bounce back from this game, and hopefully it's a wake-up call and Barcelona has a good second half of the season, but in the summer, there should be a lot of moves that are made.